First story. I canceled my stepson's vacation tickets because he never belonged in my family, and my entitled husband canceled the entire trip. So I told my stepson to leave my house, demanded my husband kick his son out, and have a new baby with me, and then threatened him with divorce as a bluff. Now everyone has abandoned me. I hate his kids so much. Hi Reddit, I'm Stephanie 38F. I've been married to my husband, Mark 42M, for just over a year. He has a son, Illy 14, from his previous marriage. His wife passed away 5 years ago. I also have a son, Jake 16, from my first marriage, and Mark has really stepped up as a father figure to him. Honestly, Jake loves having him around, and we've had a pretty smooth transition as a blended family, except for Illy. Illy is just cold. I don't know how else to say it. He's not a bad kid. He's not rude to my face. But he acts like I don't exist. I really tried when I first moved in. I would invite him to watch movies with us, include him in our pizza nights, and get him little things I thought he'd like. I went out of my way to treat him the same as Jake. But he never gave me anything back. Barely even a thanks. He spends all his time holed up in his room. And it's been that way for the entire year. Jake, on the other hand, took to Mark immediately. They play catch, they game together, and he calls him dad, sometimes even though it's not official. That part actually melts me. Jake's biological dad isn't involved, so it means a lot that he and Mark clicked. But the whole dynamic makes Illy's coldness even more obvious. And honestly, it hurts. I've tried bringing this up with Mark before, gently, like, hey, I just don't feel like Illy likes me. He'd always brush it off with, that's just how Illy is, he's introverted, or he'll come around eventually. Okay, sure. But we're a year in and nothing's changed. At some point, you stop blaming it on personality and start asking if someone just doesn't like you. One time, I bought them both nice hoodies before school started, same brand, same cost. Jake gave me a hug. Illy barely looked up from his phone. Another time I made a full Thanksgiving-style dinner in April because I thought a surprise family meal would be fun. Illy came downstairs, saw the table, said, "I'm not hungry," and went right back up. He didn't even sit for 2 minutes. I'm not going to lie, at some point, I started taking it personally. I stopped trying so hard. When we'd make plans, I'd tell Mark, I doubt Illy would want to go. Not to be mean, just being realistic. I got tired of setting myself up to feel invisible. Mark picked up on that and told me to stop excluding Illy. He said even if I think he won't come, he should still be given the option. Fine. I agreed, but it just felt performative at that point. Anyway, onto the actual issue. So Mark planned a family trip. It was something he'd been talking about for months. A long weekend out-of-town hotel booked, tickets paid for, the whole thing. It was supposed to be a bonding experience for all 4 of us. I went along with it because, yeah, it sounded nice. Jake was excited. I was looking forward to some time away, and Mark deserved the break too. But deep down, I had a knot in my stomach. I knew how this would go. Illy would either make the entire trip miserable with his silent, dead-eyed energy, or he'd flake last minute and screw up logistics. That's what he does. He isolates, sulks, and checks out. It's not fair to the rest of us. A week before the trip, Mark sat all of us down and confirmed everything. Dates, activities, and who was packing what. Illy nodded along. Didn't say anything positive, just nodded and said okay, like we were asking him to take out the trash. Zero enthusiasm. No smile. Jake, by contrast, kept asking if there'd be a pool and whether we could get room service. So yeah, I made a decision. I canceled Illy's ticket. Quietly. Just his. I figured it'd be better for everyone. Jake could actually have fun. Mark could relax without playing referee. And I wouldn't be walking on eggshells for 3 days. I'd already arranged for Illy to stay with Mark's sister. He gets along with her just fine. She's way more his vibe, quiet, introverted, and doesn't take it personally when he ghosts. To me, this was a practical solution. I wasn't trying to be vindictive. I truly believed that everybody would have a better time this way. I was doing damage control. But of course, I couldn't just come out and say that. Mark would blow a gasket. So I waited. I figured, once we got to the day of the trip, and Illy wasn't packed or coming, I could spin it. Say he didn't want to go, or he backed out late. Not ideal, but doable. Then the morning of the trip came. Mark was getting the bags out of the closet. I was finishing up some last-minute packing. Jake was buzzing with excitement. Illy came downstairs with his backpack. Honestly, I was shocked he was even packed, and asked what time we were leaving. My heart sank. He had actually planned to come. I hadn't expected that. For a second, I thought maybe I could pivot, say we had a change in plans, stall somehow. But Mark looked confused, then checked the itinerary folder he had printed out. His face dropped. he asked. Where's Eli's ticket? I didn't say anything. He stared at me and asked again. I told him I'd cancelled it. Tried to keep my voice calm and matter of fact. I said I figured Eli wasn't that into the trip, that he'd ruin it for everyone, and I didn't want Jake's first real family vacation with us to be a drag. That I'd made arrangements for Eli to stay with his aunt, where he'd be more comfortable. Mark exploded. Full on yelling. He demanded to know what the hell I was thinking, and how I could do that behind his back. Eli had said a week ago he was going. That I had zero right to make that decision. I stayed calm and told him I was thinking about everyone's experience, not just Eli's. That we all deserved a good time, and Eli has made it very clear he doesn't enjoy being around us. I asked, what's the point of dragging a kid along who's going to be miserable the whole time? So he can sulk through 3 days of planned activities. That didn't go over well. Eli didn't say anything. Just stood there. Mark told him to go back to his room and unpack. I could feel the tension rolling off him. Jake was in the hallway, wide-eyed, watching everything. Then Mark canceled the entire trip. Picked up his phone, called the hotel, the airline, everything. Non-refundable tickets, non-refundable hotel. All gone. He told me, if all 4 of us aren't going, no one's going. I asked him if he realized how insane that was, throwing away a vacation he paid for just to make a point. He ignored me. Told the boys to unpack. Told me I had no say in decisions like that ever again. I lost it. I said he had no spine, that he was letting a 14-year-old control the family. That Eli has been emotionally manipulating everyone since day one, using his quiet nature as a shield so no one calls him out. That I was done tiptoeing around his moods. He told me to leave. So I packed a bag and went to my sister's place. I needed space. I needed someone who would see how insane this all was. And they did when I explained what happened. My sister and a few other family members said Mark overreacted. That canceling the whole trip just to make a scene was extreme. That I wasn't wrong to think about how Jake and I would have been affected by Eli's presence. I posted about it in our extended family group chat, too. A few cousins backed me up. One even said, it's about time someone called that kid out, which honestly, thank you. I'm not the only one who sees it. Now Mark's barely texting me back. Jake's confused. Eli's probably loving this, acting like the silent victim again. And I'm sitting here wondering how the hell I'm the bad guy for wanting a peaceful trip. Let's get one thing clear. I did not sabotage anything. I tried to fix something that was broken. I took action because Mark wouldn't. He wants to pretend Eli's fine when the kid clearly resents everything about this new family. He gets a free pass on everything because his mum died. I'm not allowed to say that out loud, but it's true. That's the unspoken rule in this house, tiptoe around Eli. Well, I'm done pretending. Jake and I were looking forward to that trip. So was Mark. Until he decided throwing it away was better than admitting I had a point. Was it ideal, canceling the ticket behind his back? No. But what other choice did I have? Talk to him again so he could brush it off like always. Waste more time pretending Eli would magically turn into a happy camper. Not doing it. I've done enough. I tried to be the stepmom. I tried to love that kid. I gave him space, I gave him kindness, and I gave him gifts. He gave me nothing. At some point, you stop offering and start protecting your peace. So yeah, I canceled his ticket. I don't regret it. I still think it was the right call. Ada? Comments. Comment 1. You knew exactly what you were doing. You didn't cancel that ticket to protect anyone. You canceled it because Eli didn't kiss your arse for a year, and you were done pretending to care. You wanted to win. You wanted a trip with your real family, you, your son, and your husband. Eli didn't fit that image, so you cut him out like he was excess baggage. And what's worse, you did it quietly. That's what makes this especially F-ed. You didn't have the guts to say it to your husband's face, because you knew it wouldn't fly. So you pulled a snake move, tried to gaslight everyone with some, he wouldn't want to come anyway BS, and thought you'd get away with it. He was packed, Steph. He was ready. And you looked him in the face, knowing you'd erased him. That's not just selfish, it's cold. Also, the way you talk about his mum dying is disgusting. He gets a free pass because his mum died? That's what you're bitter about? Jesus. The kid lost his mother, and had to watch his dad build a new family where he doesn't feel wanted. And you're the one feeling victimized? This is going to stick. Kids don't forget this kind of betrayal. You might have just made sure that relationship is toast forever. YTA, own it. Or stay at your sister's, and save everyone else the grief. Comment 2. You didn't just cancel a ticket. You went behind your husband's back, overrode his parenting decision, and blindsided a 14-year-old kid who's already lost his mum and is trying to survive a step-family transition he didn't choose. You're not just the arsehole, you're actively cruel. You weren't protecting your peace. You were controlling the situation to make yourself more comfortable. The second you decided Eli's presence wasn't worth accommodating, you treated him like a problem to solve instead of a human being. Imagine how he felt finally deciding to go on a trip, maybe trying to make an effort, only to find out you erased him from the plan like he didn't matter. And let's be real, this isn't about Eli being introverted. This is about your ego. You gave up on that kid the moment he didn't worship the ground you walked on. You expected a traumatized teenager to react like your golden child. And when he didn't, you started making power plays. It's not subtle. Your husband canceling the trip wasn't making a scene. It was him making a stand. Because what you did wasn't just disrespectful, it was family breaking. You put your comfort over his son's basic dignity. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was the beginning of the end for your marriage. Hope the sister's couch is comfortable. Comment 3. Alright, I'll probably get downvoted, but I'm gonna say Ash, though mostly you. I get it. Being a step-parent to a kid who doesn't want you around is brutal. It's thankless, and yeah, I'm sure Eli's been cold and distant and made you feel invisible. That can mess with your head over time, especially when you're trying to build a family and keep getting stonewalled. You're not wrong for feeling frustrated. You're human. But the way you handled this, total strategic nuke. You didn't just make a mistake, you made a calculated decision to exclude a child, lie by omission, and then acted surprised when it all exploded. You didn't trust your husband enough to talk it through again, you just decided you knew better than the parent of the kid. That's a massive red flag. Eli being introverted isn't the same as being toxic. Sounds like the kid is just quiet and grieving, not some emotional terrorist. You said yourself he gets along with his aunt. So maybe it's not just he's closed off. Maybe he doesn't feel safe with you. Also wild that you're framing Jake as this perfect, enthusiastic golden child. Makes me wonder if he's just more aligned with your energy, and you're resenting Eli for not fitting into your preferred vibe. I don't think you're a monster. But you blew this one bad. And if you want any future in that family, you better come to the table with accountability, not excuses. Update. So I went back home. I waited 4 days after the blow up. Mark didn't call. No text, no come back, nothing. Just shut me out like I was some random girlfriend, not his wife. I couldn't believe how detached he was. But I couldn't just throw away my marriage over one disagreement. I have a household, a son, a life. So I walked back in like an adult. He barely looked at me. No questions, no welcome, just cold. Still sleeping in the same house, but we might as well have been roommates. The only conversation we had was him setting conditions. He wanted me to text his entire extended family, the ones I misled, according to him, and correct what I said. Basically confess I left out the part where I canceled Eli's ticket behind his back. On top of that, he demanded I apologize to Eli directly and promised in writing that I wouldn't make unilateral decisions about his son again, or exclude him from family events. I told him I'd think about it. What I wanted was for us to rebook the trip. Jake had been looking forward to it. I had too. It wasn't just about a getaway, it was a milestone for our blended family. A reset. I asked Mark, flat out, if we could do it again. Same trip. Just us and the boys. Clean slate. He said no. Not unless I met his conditions first. That's when I realized what this really was. He wanted me crawling back. He was holding the trip hostage, so he could play the moral high ground. No thanks. I told him I wasn't apologizing for a decision I made with the right intentions. I did what I thought was best for everyone. I didn't do it out of spite. I didn't intend to hurt anyone. I made a call to protect the vibe of the trip. And the fact that I guessed wrong doesn't make me a monster. He didn't care. Just walked out of the room. Silent treatment began. And Jake? That hurt more. He asked me why I did it. Why do I always make things tense? He said Eli didn't even do anything that he was finally trying, and I wrecked it. Then he asked me straight to my face, "Do you even want him here?" And I couldn't give him the answer he wanted. I told Jake the truth as I saw it, that Eli and I don't have a bond, and that maybe he'd be better off with people he connects with. That some kids need different environments. Since then, he's been cold too. Fewer words, no affection. It's like I broke something I can't fix. So I tried. I tried doing what everyone screams about online, build bridges, earn trust, blah blah blah. I cooked Eli's favorite meals well. What I think are his favorites he barely eats with us, so who knows. I offered to help him with school projects. I left him a gift card to that bookstore he goes to. I invited him to a museum I found online. He didn't respond. Not, no thanks. Not, I'm busy. Nothing. Just stared at me like I wasn't real. Mark noticed, of course. And every time Eli ignored me, I could see him chalking it up as my failure. Not Eli's unwillingness to engage. I kept telling myself, At least Jake sees I'm trying. But Jake just rolled his eyes. Said I was faking it now that I got caught. That stung. So yeah, I stopped trying. I had a long talk with Mark. Calm, respectful. I told him this setup wasn't sustainable. I said maybe it's time to consider letting Eli live with his aunt. She's nurturing, quiet, and gets him. She'd never expect him to participate in group dinners or express feelings or say thank you. It's a better fit. I said this wasn't punishment, it was just a better alignment of personalities. Mark looked at me like I was asking to exile his child. He said, "You want to kick my son out of his own house because you can't connect with him?" I said no, that wasn't it. I was just being practical. Then I tried to reach out to his family. I figured if anyone could talk some sense into him, it'd be his mom or sister. I told them I thought it might be time to have Ellie live with Aunt Sarah. That I wasn't trying to be the evil stepmom here, just doing what makes sense for the family. That we couldn't keep walking on eggshells every time Ellie walked into a room. They shut me down. Said I was toxic and manipulative, and that Ellie had every right to live in his own home. One cousin literally said, "You're trying to erase a kid who lost his mom. Own what you did." Great. So now I'm here. Sitting in a house where I'm the outsider, where my husband barely looks at me, where my own son is slipping away, and everyone expects me to grovel like I'm the one who destroyed the family. Let's be honest, this family was never whole. Mark had a son who wasn't ready for change, and I walked into a setup I was never going to win. Illy doesn't belong here. That's not hate. That's just fact. He deserves a space where he's fully embraced, not tolerated and tiptoed around. And me? I deserve a home where I'm not treated like a criminal for making a judgment call. I won't grovel. I won't play along with Mark's little control game, where he gets to dangle reconciliation like a carrot as long as I play by his script. I have some dignity left. I did what I thought was right. And I still believe I was. Comments. Comment 1. Jesus, OP. YTA. And I don't mean, oops, you messed up. I mean you're the kind of step-parent kids write memoir chapters about. You keep trying to frame yourself as practical, but every single action you've taken screams territorial insecurity. You don't read the room. You bulldoze it. Illy didn't magically ruin your family. You decided he was a liability the moment he didn't immediately fold into the Hallmark picture you wanted. He's not warm. He's not reactive. He's not grateful enough. Dude, his mum died. You came in a few years later acting like you were fixing an incomplete puzzle. You weren't. You were rearranging pieces that didn't belong to you. And that whole, "he doesn't belong in this family" line, that tells me everything. You never saw this as his family. You saw it as yours plus Mark plus Jake, with Illy as an inconvenient leftover from a previous life. You treated him like an intruder. And then you went behind your husband's back repeatedly. Canceling the ticket. Manipulating the tech story to extended family. Trying to push Illy onto the end. Then reaching out to Mark's family to pressure him. Mark isn't holding a trip hostage. He's protecting his kid from being erased. And Jake isn't slipping away. He's realizing his mom is capable of being pretty damn cruel. You're not the victim. You detonated your own standing in that house. And you're shocked everyone's reacting to the fallout. Comment 2. You live in a delusional bubble where your intent absolves any impact. Every time you talk about your actions, it ends with some version of, "Well, I didn't mean to hurt anyone." As if that magically rewrites the story. You keep insisting you had no malice, but the behavior was malicious in effect. You canceled a kid's ticket without telling anyone. You lied by omission to cover your tracks. You blamed the kid for being introverted. Then you demanded the vacation be rebooked like you didn't blow it up. Do you hear how unhinged that sounds outside your own head? Your entire justification hinges on this imaginary world where "I thought it would help" is more important than "I damaged people." You treat your thought process like it's morally superior to the reality it created. And you clearly expected Mark to fold. That's why his calm, ice-cold detachment freaked you out so badly. You're used to controlling the emotional tone of the house, and suddenly he's not reacting the way you want. That's why you see it as manipulative, not because it is, but because it breaks your script. Also, the way you talk about Eli being unfit for the household is disgusting. He's not a misbehaving foster pet. He's a teenager who lost a parent, and you want him relocated because he doesn't validate you enough. Your dignity is just unchecked ego. The only reason you're not apologizing is because doing so would force you to admit that your intentions weren't the heroic rescue you keep pretending they were. Update. I came back to a cold house. Mark still barely talks to me. Illy stays in his room. Jake avoids eye contact. Nothing's changed, if anything, it's worse. I tried to talk to Mark again. I said we should stop pretending we're strangers, and at least co-parent like adults. He just nodded and walked away. That was it. I asked him if we're ever going to talk about what he did canceling the trip, freezing me out, and he said, "There's nothing left to say." So I moved out of our bedroom. Not for drama, because I couldn't sleep next to a man who acts like I'm invisible in my own home. And no, before anyone jumps to conclusions, I didn't kick Jake out of his room. He has a big room. I moved a mattress in there. We used to be close. I thought maybe it would be comforting for both of us. But Jake didn't say a word when I moved in. The second night, he asked if I was going to be in there every night now. That hurt. But I said yes, because Mark clearly wants me gone. And there's no other room, unless I sleep in the laundry closet. The silence from Jake didn't improve. A week later, he snapped. He told me he didn't like me being weird, and that I was turning our house into a war zone. I asked him what that was supposed to mean. He said, "You're making everything about you, and I'm sick of it." That's when it clicked. Mark poisoned him too. Got in his head. I've been the one trying to rebuild this family, and now even my son thinks I'm the enemy. I didn't lash out. I just left, and went straight to Eli's room. I wrote him a letter. A full handwritten note, not angry, not mean, just explaining everything. That I never hated him. That I was trying to protect the trip for everyone. That I didn't want him excluded. But sometimes people need different things, and I was doing what I thought was best. I told him I felt like I was being punished for trying to make hard decisions nobody else wanted to make. I left it on his pillow. I thought maybe it would open the door to healing. Instead, Mark stormed into the kitchen an hour later with a letter in his hand, demanding to know what the hell I was doing. I said calmly, "I'm communicating." He said, "No, you're harassing a child you emotionally neglected for a year." He then told me he wants me out, again. So I called my mom. Told her everything. She's always been my backup, no matter how messy things got. She had my side. I told her the family was turning on me, that Mark was turning Jake against me, and that I needed help rebalancing the household dynamic. She agreed to come stay with us for a bit. It was fine at first. She slept on the couch, helped with cooking, and tried to play neutral. But then she started spending time with Eli. A lot of time. Talking to him, asking about school, watching old movies with him that he liked. I didn't say anything for the first few days, but when I asked her why she was spending more time with him than with me or Jake, she said, "Because he seems like the only one in this house who needs a safe adult." She betrayed me. She started defending Mark's decisions in private conversations. When I told her I was considering a temporary separation just to give Mark space and shake him out of his rigidity, she told me, "You might want to be careful. You're not in control here like you think." I was never trying to control anything. I was trying to make the trip happen. I was trying to rebuild trust. I was trying to make a functional household with children who weren't biologically mine, and who made zero effort to meet me halfway. Now I'm sleeping on a mattress in my son's room, while my mother babysits the kid who won't even make eye contact with me. I tried to take one last step to fix things. I booked a small weekend getaway, just Jake and me. I told him over breakfast. He said no. Didn't even ask where. Just shook his head and said, "I'm not going anywhere with you until you fix things with Eli and Dad." I lost it. I said, "You're 16, not a hostage negotiator." He said, "Then stop acting like someone who needs negotiating with." So now I'm back in limbo. The trip failed. My marriage is silent. My son looks at me like I broke something he used to believe in. My own mother is practically co-parenting with my husband. And I'm sleeping on a floor mattress in a room that used to feel safe. Mark hasn't mentioned divorce. But he did say he's consulting someone about next steps. That could mean anything. All I ever wanted was to be respected as a parent in this home. I wanted a husband who stood by me, a blended family that worked, and a household that wasn't ruled by one kid's withdrawn energy. I'm the only one who made actual decisions. Everyone else just reacts, and then blames me when things go sideways. I don't hate Eli. But he was never part of my family. That's not cruel, it's just fact. He doesn't talk to me, doesn't share space with me, and doesn't acknowledge me. And everyone acts like I'm the one holding him captive. I'm not. I just want to live in a house where people want to build something, not just survive inside it. Maybe that's not this house. Maybe it never was. Comments. Comment 1. I don't think you realize how close you were to having everything you claimed to want: a family, a partner, a home. And then you wrecked it. Illy wasn't the problem. He was just a quiet kid trying to survive his grief. And instead of meeting him where he was, you treated his distance as disrespect. You turned his personality into a threat, his silence into sabotage. You decided he was the wall between you and happiness, and then you punished him for not knocking it down for you. And Jake? He didn't turn on you. He saw through you. You pushed too hard, pulled him into your meltdown, and made him pick sides. Mark warned you. Multiple times. You ignored him. Then you dared him to act like a father. And he did, and now you're pissed that he followed through. You tried to bluff a separation and got left holding nothing but your own ego. The saddest part? You clearly don't hate these people. You just don't know how to stop making their love conditional on your comfort. If you just accepted that not everyone expresses care the way you want, you'd probably be sitting on that family trip right now. Instead, you're on a mattress in a house that's rejecting you from every direction. Comment 2. You didn't want a family. You wanted an audience. Ely didn't clap. Jake stopped clapping. Mark turned his back. And now you're lying on a mattress in a room you don't belong in, wondering why no one's handing you the mic again. Your actions are textbook narcissistic damage control. Write the letter to clear the air. Move into Jake's room to reconnect. Invite your mom to gain backup. Then flip out when none of it sticks. At every point, when something backfires, you escalate. You don't reflect. You just change tactics and double down on the same self-righteous energy. What's wild is that you still genuinely believe this is about doing what was best. Best for whom? Certainly not for Ely. Not for Jake. Not even for yourself. Because you torched your own home just to be right. You're not being misunderstood. You're being seen maybe for the first time, and nobody likes what they're seeing. Update. I didn't think I'd be writing again, but everything has officially collapsed. My marriage, my home, my relationship with my son, all of it. And I keep hearing people say, actions have consequences, but I genuinely don't understand how trying to hold a family together turned into being treated like radioactive waste. A few weeks after the last update, I hit my limit. The silence in the house was suffocating. Mark barely acknowledged me. Jake kept avoiding eye contact. Ely wouldn't even come downstairs if he heard my footsteps. I was walking around like a ghost in my own life. So one night I snapped. I packed a suitcase, loudly slamming drawers, zipping and unzipping, making sure everybody heard, and I went downstairs and told them I was leaving, until someone in this family cared enough to fight for me. No one reacted. Not even Jake. He just stared at the TV, like I was a neighbor yelling about noise. Mark didn't look up from his laptop. Ely was in his room behind a closed door like always. So I walked out. I thought maybe Mark would follow me out to the driveway. I thought Jake would at least ask where I was going. No one stopped me. I drove to a cheap motel on the edge of town and waited for someone to call. No one did. Not that night. Not the next morning. I waited 3 days before coming home. I walked in expecting relief, an apology, something. Instead, Mark told me we'd be attending marriage counseling. I said fine. Finally, a professional could explain to him what his emotional neglect did to this family. The session was a disaster. I told the therapist everything: how isolated I'd been, how Mark always took Ely's side, how Jake had turned cold, and how I'd been forced into impossible decisions. I expected the therapist to empathize or at least mediate. Instead, she asked me why I thought excluding Ely behind Mark's back was inevitable. Mark didn't defend me. He didn't defend anything. He just sat there, calm, like he already knew the ending. Halfway through the session, he sighed and said, "I want a divorce." I swear the air disappeared. I couldn't breathe. I told him we could salvage things. I told him we just needed a fresh start. I even said the stupidest thing I've ever said in my life. I suggested we try for a baby. A clean slate. A new family member neither of us had baggage with. Something we could build together. Mark looked at me like I'd lost my mind. The therapist looked concerned. I insisted I was being serious. Mark said, "We can't even raise the kids we already have together. I'm not bringing another child into this." I left the session shaking. I felt humiliated and ambushed, like I'd been set up. I told him I wouldn't sign anything. He said, "You won't have a choice if you keep making everything toxic." Then came the family gathering. His cousin was hosting a barbecue, and Mark insisted we still attend to stay civil. I agreed because I wanted to show people I wasn't the monster they were whispering about. Within an hour, someone joked loudly, "Make sure no one cancels a kid's ticket this time." People laughed. I felt my cheeks burning. Mark didn't defend me. Jake walked away. Ely hid behind Mark's aunt. And something snapped. I yelled. At everyone. That they didn't understand the full story. That they were judging me without knowing what I sacrificed. I ended up storming out. Apparently someone recorded it. Mark's sister sent it to him with, "She's unwell." That video became another nail in the coffin. The final blow, the one that actually broke me, came from Jake. One night, I heard him talking quietly on the phone. I assumed it was a friend until I heard him say, "Dad, I just can't handle her anymore." I froze. He didn't know I was there. He said, "I don't feel safe around her. She keeps making everything about her." Please don't leave me alone with her. I stepped into the doorway, and Jake's face drained. He hung up fast. I asked him, "You don't feel safe with me? After everything I've done for you? After raising you alone for years? After choosing you every day?" He said, "Mom, I'm tired. I'm so tired. I don't want to do this anymore." I begged him to explain what this meant. He said, Your drama. Your fights. Your reactions. I can't do it. I just want a normal life." When Mark filed for divorce 2 weeks later, Jake chose to stay with him. He didn't even hesitate. My son. My one constant. My one person who was supposed to always be mine. He packed his things and hugged me like I was an elderly neighbor he felt sorry for. He said, "I love you, Mom. But I can't live with you right now." I stood there frozen, watching my own child's back disappear into Mark's car. Mark told me they'd check in periodically. But until things stabilized, Jake wouldn't be staying with me overnight. Everyone abandoned me. My husband. My son. My in-laws. Even my own mother ended up siding with Mark in the end, saying he's a stabilizing parent, and that I need help. And the worst part is everyone thinks they're justified. They think I'm the problem. That I'm unstable or unfit or whatever ridiculous label they're throwing around this week. But I know I tried. I know I fought harder than anyone for this family to work. I made decisions no one else had the courage to make. I carried the weight no one else wanted to acknowledge. And somehow, I'm the one left alone. Comments. Comment 1. I don't even know what to say anymore. YTA, obviously. But not in the usual Reddit way where someone messes up and people dogpile. You're beyond that. This is scorched earth behavior. You didn't lose your family because of one bad decision. You lost them because you turned every single interaction into a test of loyalty. Jake had to pick you over a lie. Mark had to pick you over honesty. Everyone had to pick your version of events over reality, or they were the enemy. You think they left because they didn't care? No. They left because you made staying unbearable. You weaponized love. You weaponized motherhood. You tried to guilt Jake into parenting you. He's 16. He's a kid. You packed your suitcase like it was a challenge. Stop me if you care. And now you're shocked that no one called your bluff. That's not betrayal. That's exhaustion. And Mark. You pushed him to his limit and beyond. He warned you. Multiple times. You never listened. Now you're mad he finally acted on the boundaries you crossed months ago. This isn't a tragedy. It's a slow-motion demolition you set in motion brick by brick. Comment 2. Your whole update is basically, how dare people stop orbiting me? It's painful to read because there's a version of this story where you could have had a family. Where Ellie was distant, sure, but gradually thawed. Where Jake stayed close. Where Mark lent in instead of away. But you never wanted a family. You wanted control. You wanted to be the center. And anyone who didn't reflect your energy back at you got punished. You didn't mother-in-law. You competed with him. You didn't protect Jake. You pulled him into adult conflicts and expected him to carry emotional weight you couldn't handle. You didn't partner with Mark. You antagonized him, tested him, and ignored him until he stopped giving you answers. And now you're sitting in the ruins, screaming betrayal, when all they did was finally choose themselves over the chaos. You thought you were the protagonist of a redemption story. But to everyone else, you were just the problem they eventually escaped. Second story. My so-called best friend of 15 years went NC with me for no reason. Now, 5 years later, she wants to talk and have a relationship. I declined. My best friend of 15 years went no contact with me 5 years ago. We are supposed to reconnect, but I'm feeling unsure. She was the most emotionally intelligent, loyal, and communicative person I knew. We'd been like sisters and stayed in touch no matter the distance. But when I moved far away to pursue my education, and she had babies back to back, she told me that she didn't have time to maintain a long-distance friendship. I told her I understood, that her kids and self-care should obviously come first, and that we'd pick up where we left off someday. I never dreamed she'd go NC. TBH, I'm not sure she knew at that point, either. I stepped back, invested in other friendships, and gave her space. I'd call every now and again and text on birthdays and Christmas. She stopped answering the phone and responded to text every 6 months or so. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was about more than being busy, especially when I saw distant family and friends mention talking on the phone on her FB. A year and a half in, I sent her a message asking if I'd done anything that hurt or upset her, and that I wanted to make amends if that were the case. She left me on read. I took it as a sign to respect her obvious, if unspoken, boundaries. Reaching out without hearing back also hurt like hell. I couldn't do it anymore. I tried to move on, to not obsess over the reason. I talked about it with friends and in therapy. I also fell into a deep depression. withdrew from my other relationships, and became increasingly self-isolated. I'd clearly hurt and lost the person closest to me, but didn't know how or why. 5 years passed with no contact. A few months back, I learned her father died unexpectedly and reached out. We spoke for a while, and she apologized, saying that she'd never meant to let it go on this long. I apologized for anything I had done to hurt or upset her. She got quiet and said that we could talk about it later. We spoke a little while longer, but once I got off the phone, I became flooded with anger. I let the feelings fade and gave her space, then texted a few weeks later to offer support and condolences crickets. Gave it another month before messaging and saying that I was up for sorting it out or leaving it be. She said she wanted to chat, but we've been trying to hammer out a time for months now, which is telling it seems we're both hesitant. Now she wants to talk next week, and I'm not so sure. Part of me wants to cancel, because F this pain hello, avoidance. A smaller part of me wants to fawn and make it all better hello, trauma and anxiety. And every cell in my body wants to protect my broken heart. I tend to be really hard on myself, and given the pedestal I placed her on, it's not just me. She is loved by literally everyone. While I am a quirky indie who's loved but more of an acquired taste, I've blamed myself, especially in the absence of a reason. But in reality, I feel that this was a f-ed up way to treat a best friend, and that it isn't all my fault, like my brain and lingering trauma would like me to believe. I need advice on how to approach this. Part of me wants to meet with her, even though my nervous system wants to flee. Part of me wants to heal this rift now in case we never get the chance to. Logically, I know that I should hear her out, but I am just so damned hurt and angry. I don't even know whether to express that to her before or after she says her piece. I know I need to make space for both of our feelings and grievances, but how? I missed her so much, but I gave up on her a long time ago. I don't know how to move past this. TBH, I'm not even sure I want to. Is talking to or trying to make amends with someone who ghosted me for 5 years even worth it? If only to find out why. TLDR. Moved away from BF almost sister of 15 plus years. She said she couldn't do a long-distance friendship because of her young children, but still made time for other people. I got the sense that this was about more than just being busy. Asked if I'd said or done anything hurtful and offered to make amends. She left me on read for 5 years. We are back in touch after a death in her family, and she wants to hash things out, but I am unsure. Comments. Comment 1. I would meet her, hear her out, and then take some time to process. 5 years is a very long time to go without talking, especially if it was something that bothered her. She didn't air the problem when it happened and let it fester. Hear her out, but stay reserved till you know why. OP. I want to hear her say her piece, but I think I need to give her a piece of my mind first. Comment 2. If I were you, I'd want to know, but only under my terms. The biggest term being she does all the work of putting this together. You didn't walk away from her. She walked away from you. The rapprochement should come from her alone. The other thing you need to brace yourself for is that you were never her best friend. She may have been your best friend, but it wasn't true on her part. She probably doesn't need to re-establish the relationship nearly as much as you do. She more than likely just feels guilty that she didn't mean to hurt when she cut you out of her life. But she didn't care enough that she wanted you in her life. I don't say these things to be hurtful, but rather to warn you not to expect some huge issue you didn't know about. Your lives had grown apart literally and figuratively, and she just went with it because she didn't care enough not to. OP. Ouch. But also, you're probably right. After she had her first kid, she fell in with her mum friends more, and the slow fade began. As for not meaning to hurt me, I'm not so sure. She knew for certain that it would hurt me, and even mentioned not wanting to during the "I can't be your long-distance friend" convo. But something obviously changed. Either she didn't care, or she wanted to. Comment 3. I'd choose the middle way. Explain to her that the way she treated you then, and now causes you a lot of anxiety. That she can explain her reasoning by email if she wishes, as short or as detailed as she wants. Then you will decide if you want to talk about it, and you can prepare for the conversation. After all, she had 5 years to think about this conversation. You need some time as well. If she refuses, so be it. I will not contact her again. OP. I hadn't thought of email. That's not a bad idea. She's not a great writer, though, so that might be a disadvantage. But there's always speech to text to help get the point across. You're right about the anxiety bit. Definitely going to have to include that. Update. Reading your responses has been helpful, thanks for the reality check. Prior to sharing this, a small part of me hoped we could be besties again. Now, I realize that's not only impossible, but also unwise. Whatever her reasoning may have been, I know that I deserved better than to be left on read for years. I am kind. I am receptive. When I've hurt someone, I listen, apologize, and make amends. I assume she didn't have the capacity to talk things over. But it doesn't take a lot to say, "Hey, I am drowning right now, and I love you. But I don't have time to talk or write. Please don't blame yourself. I'll be in touch someday." But instead, she said nothing. For years. I'm not ready to forgive that. And I know that if we talked, I'd not only forgive her, but would probably end up asking her to forgive me. Like many women, I say sorry too often. Yes, I am working on boundaries. More on that below. So the update is this. I messaged her saying that not knowing why she cut off contact had been very difficult. That she had hurt me deeply. And that, while my first instinct after her father died had been to support her, I just wasn't ready to be in touch again. I'm guessing some of you are groaning or cursing at me right now. Most of you really wanted to know why at first. I did, too. But this situation is fresh for you. I've been sitting with it for years. To me, her reasoning is less important than the pain she caused, and could easily cause again. Sharing this helped me realize that I'd rather continue to enjoy the happiness I've found without her than risk it by chasing her down and forcing a conversation that neither of us seemed eager to have. Chasing unavailable people is a habit that her disappearance helped me break. I caught myself regressing when she kept leaving me on read, and I kept messaging anyway. That was a mistake on my part. One that left me feeling really SHTTY. I won't do that again. So now what? Now, I keep doing the good work in therapy to process this hurt and anger and dig into whether I'm willing to risk more pain to give her the chance to explain herself. If and when I do get back in touch, I'll consider whether mutual effort is being made. What I won't do, now or ever, is chase down someone who ghosted me just to find out why. The why is less important than the what, because what happened was incredibly painful and not an experience I care to repeat. Impact over intent, always. If we ever reconnect, I'll probably share it here. Until then, thanks for listening, and to anyone facing a similar dilemma. If it's not an enthusiastic yes, it's a no. That applies to consent, to all parties in friendships and relationships, and to how our bodies respond in situations like these. Mine had been saying hard pass for a while now. I'm glad I finally listened. Comments. Comment 1. I had a friend of 30 years who did the same to me. She refused to come to my wedding, even when I offered to pay for everything, her flight, her hotel, etc. She ghosted me soon after, and for a while, it broke my heart. But time does its thing, and I can assure you that the reason no longer matters. So I know you're doing the right thing by not pursuing an answer. I'm sure that if you managed to get a reason out of her, she would just use it to justify her bad behavior. You sound like a good friend, and you deserve better than that. Comment 2. I understand. I am the friend. Not the actual friend, but that person to people in my own life. I had a breakdown and got super addicted to drugs, and I just couldn't handle anyone. So I ghosted everyone. I assumed they all know it was about me, and not them since I ghosted everyone. And I'm sure they all could tell I was struggling. It was SHTTY of me. I would never expect anyone to be able to forgive me. So I never reached out to anyone again. I regret it. Don't be me. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.